super fun, and all about artisan cheese and more to melt your peaceful heart and toast your peaceful life. Coming to you from the Appalachian Mountains of southwestern Virginia, this is the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hey, this is Scott Hall from Peaceful Heart Farm, and you are listening to the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hello, everybody. Melanie Hall here. Hope you are doing very, very well. The conversation today and every day revolves around the value of tradition, traditional homestead living, traditional raw milk products, and artisan cheese. And topics discussed here are designed to create new perspectives and possibilities for how you might add the taste of tradition to your life. Today it's going to be about traditional homestead living. Coyotes are a plague when you have sheep. And today's podcast is going to be all about coyotes, or coyotes sometime. I'm going to call them coyotes. So probably more than you ever wanted to know. And some things about coyotes might surprise you. So I hope it'll be interesting for you. I want to take a minute and say welcome to all the new listeners and welcome back to the veteran homestead-loving regulars who stop by the FarmCast for every episode. I appreciate you all so much. And I'm going to share with you what's going on at the farm this week. And today's topic is coyotes. That's what's going on. We have had issues, and I need to talk about it. I'll try to keep it mostly factual and as upbeat as possible. In the end, though, sometimes homestead life has tragic consequences. Over a span of about 3 or 4 days, we lost more than half of our sheep. Now, we didn't have a lot of them, but still, all 6 of our lambs, including my bottle baby, Susie Q, are gone. And five adult ewes are also gone. We have 10 sheep left out of 21. Yeah, it's a big loss. I'm still heartbroken about losing Susie Q. I still look for her. When I look out the window, momentarily, I'm looking for her. Especially in the evening when I go to create bottles for the twin calves, I'm briefly looking for the very small bottle that we use for lambs. And then I remember she's gone. I was actually unusually attached to Susie Q. We've had bottle lambs lots of times, but I've never been so attached. I don't know. Well, maybe it's just that we've never lost one of our bottle babies. And after they're grown and no longer need me for daily feedings, they kind of merge in with the rest of the flock, and I kind of naturally let go of them. Maybe. Like Lambert, he's still out there with the boys. He was a bottle baby. I just don't think I would miss him the way that I miss Susie Q. And we've had others that ended up at freezer camp, and I don't know what's different except that she was still so young and really dependent on us. And we actually moved all of the animals out of the back fields where the attacks were occurring. Scott brought out a couple of guys a couple of days ago, and they had some really advanced equipment, and hunting coyotes is what they did. For fun, I guess, and they, with their night goggles, saw the male leader out there, and it was the only one they saw actually come up. We had left some of the dead carcasses out there in place, and, he came back, and so they got him. And we've also used poison, and that's a really harsh method, but sometimes it's necessary, and we still don't know where we are with that. The twin calves were also quite vulnerable to a coyote attack, and Scott moved them to a sheltered area. Virginia is also with those calves. We had to pull her out of the general herd because she was nursing on Cloud. If you remember, Cloud is already feeding 2 calves. She has her calf, Winston, and then we grafted Princess onto her. So adding Virginia was definitely more than Cloud could support. And you can likely guess that the ones who would suffer would be Princess and Winston. Virginia's about a year old and would definitely wipe out all the available milk, and then the younger two would be left hungry. So Virginia is safely away from the other cows and now hanging out with the twins, which I am bottle feeding. So keeping the various calves out of one or another milk supply has really been a challenge this year. I don't know if I mentioned that we briefly had all the calves and cows together. It's much easier to maintain the pastures if there are only two groups of animals, the boys and the girls, and then you only have two groups that you're moving from paddock to paddock. However, having all the cowgirls together immediately failed. That was an immediate fail. Rosie came in for milking, and she was down a couple of quarts of milk immediately within 24 hours. So we suspected Princess, as Rosie is her mom after all. Now I'm wondering if it was actually Virginia, and after she got a taste of milk, she started looking around and found Cloud after we moved Rosie out. Who knows? I don't know. Rosie and Butter are in a field by themselves now. They're the ones that we're milking right now. And the twin calves in Virginia, they're in the loping space. And then the rest of the crew, which includes Violet, Claire, Buttercup, Cloud, and her two calves, those guys are all out front. And the boys, of course, are in yet another place. So we've got cows all over the place. And everyone is relatively safe at the moment. The boy sheep are with the boy cows, and the girl sheep are with the larger crew of Violet, Claire, Buttercup, and so on. So everyone's relatively safe at the moment. And let's talk about coyotes. I didn't want to know all of this, and I left out the most gruesome of details, but the gist of the story is here. So a coyote is a species of canine, and it's native to North America. It's smaller than a wolf, and it's equivalent to the ecological niche of the golden jackal in Europe and Asia. Though the coyote is larger and more predatory. It has other historical names. Prairie wolf, the brush wolf, because we're talking all over North America that you have these coyote. And they're listed as of least concern by the International Union of Conservation of Nature. There's a wide distribution and they're abundant throughout North America, so there's no shortage of them. You've also got abundant coyote populations southward through Mexico into Central America, and even now it's enlarging the range by moving into other urban areas in the eastern U.S. and Canada. And as far as southwards through Mexico and Central America, the coyote was sighted in eastern Panama across the Panama Canal from their home range for the first time in 2013. So they're moving along. So there are 19 recognized subspecies. I'm not going to get into all of those. Let's see. The average male is 18 to 44 pounds. They're really quite light. And the average female, 15 to 40 pounds. So this male that these hunters got the other night, maybe 30 pounds. Maybe 30 pounds. Their fur color is predominantly a light gray and red, and sometimes it's interspersed with black and white. And the colors vary according to geography. And they're highly flexible in their social organization. So sometimes they're living in a family unit, and sometimes it's just a loosely knit pack of unrelated individuals. They are primarily carnivorous. Their diet consists mainly of deer, rabbits, or hares, rodents, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and invertebrates, though they can also eat fruits and vegetables on occasion. Really, fruits and vegetables. So you've got that characteristic vocalization of a howl made by solitary individuals. And then let's see, the threat to coyotes, humans. Human are the greatest threat, followed by cougars and gray wolves. Those are the ones that prey on the coyotes. In spite of the wolves actually preying on them, they actually will sometimes mate with the gray, eastern, or red wolves, and they produce a coy wolf hybrid. They can also create a coy dog hybrid. Genetic studies show that most North American wolves contain some level of coyote DNA. How about that? And then you've got coyote in the folklore, right? Native American folklore. Usually they're depicted as a trickster, and the trickster will assume the form of an actual coyote or a man, and that's the character in the Native American lore. Now, after the European colonization of the Americas, this particular animal caricature was seen as cowardly and untrustworthy animal. Yeah. Unlike wolves, which have undergone, an improvement in their public image, attitudes toward the coyote remain largely negative. And I'm in the group with that attitude. Now, they're hunting and they're feeding. Let's see. What do we know about that? 2 studies have that experimentally investigated the role of olfactory, smell, auditory, sound, and visual cues, found that visual cues are the most important ones for hunting in the coyotes. Let's see. When they're hunting large prey, they often work in pairs or small groups. And unlike the wolf, which is going to attack their prey from the rear, the coyote approaches from the front. They're lacerating the head and the throat. And that's as graphic as I'm going to get on that. Let's see. Coyotes, they live in large groups, but small prey is typically caught singly. Some of the rabbits and squirrels and moles and such as that. Now, they do also hunt together. Well, so they'll hunt in larger groups, and they'll also form a hunting relationship. Now, so this is interesting. They form hunting relationships with American badgers. So they're assisting each other in digging up the rodent prey. And the relationship between the two species may occasionally border on an apparent friendship. Some coyotes have been observed kind of laying their heads on their badger companions and licking their faces without protest. So, I don't know. The amicable interactions between coyotes and badgers, so that was known even in pre-Columbian civilization. So badgers, I don't know why. But there's a Mexican jar dated to, 1250 to 1300. It's depicting the relationship between these two creatures. Interesting, huh? Badgers and coyotes. So their vocalizations, a coyote has been described as the most vocal of all wild North American mammals. If you've ever heard that howl, you will know they are definitely the most vocal. So they're, let's see, we have at least 11 different vocalizations that are known about in adult coyotes, and these sounds are divided into 3 categories. Alarm, greeting, and contact. So the lone howl is the most iconic sound of that coyote, and it maybe kind of serves the purpose of announcing the presence of a lone individual separated from its pack. But you'll have one and then the other, and they just kind of talk back and forth to each other. Let's see. Let's talk about their habitat. Where do they live? Prior to their near extermination of wolves and cougars, the coyote was most numerous in the grasslands that were inhabited by bison, pronghorn, elk, and other deer. They did particularly well in short grass areas with prairie dogs. Yeah, there were a lot of those. When I lived out in Oklahoma, you got a lot of prairie dogs. You also got a lot of coyotes. Let's see. It is just as much at home in semi-arid areas, sagebrush, jackrabbits, Deserts inhabited by cactus, kangaroo rats, and rattlesnakes, so they do well just about anywhere. They'll walk around 3 to 10 miles per day, often along trails like logging roads. They may use iced over rivers as travel routes in the winter. They are often more active in the evening and in the beginning of the night, more so than during the day. And they're competent swimmers, and they can travel maybe a half a mile across water. Now, what's their diet? Well, the coyote is ecological, as I said, equivalent of the Eurasian golden jackal, and likewise, it's highly versatile in its choice of food, but it is primarily carnivorous, with 90% of its diet consisting of meat. So the prey species include bison. That would be more like carrion bison. They can't really take down a bison, so white-tailed deer, mule deer, moose, elk, bighorn sheep, rabbits, rodents, birds, especially young water birds, pigeons and doves, amphibians except toads, lizards, snakes, turtles, and tortoises, fish, crustaceans, and insects. More unusual prey include young black bear cubs and rattlesnakes. Coyotes kill rattlesnakes mostly for food, but they also are protecting their pups in their dens. So they'll tease the snakes until they stretch out, and then they bite their heads, and then they shake them. And let's see, birds may range in size from like larks and sparrows, pretty small, up to adult wild turkeys. Those are pretty big, but one coyote could easily take down a turkey. Now, if they're working in packs or in pairs, they are going to have access to the larger prey. In some cases, they can take down the adult deer, the cow, the elk, and definitely sheep. Although they're really looking for fawns, calves, and lambs, and those are the ones that are most often taken. But coyotes in packs can bring down prey, let's see, weighing up to 220 or more pounds. Now, in adult animals, large animals like that, they're going to exploit the vulnerable. So those that are infirm, if they're stuck in the snow or ice, or if they're otherwise weakened by the winter, or if they're heavily pregnant. You also have less wary domestic animals, and those are more easily exploited. And even though they prefer fresh meat, they will scavenge when the opportunity presents itself, as I was talking about those large bison. They would be scavenging those if they saw the opportunity. Let's see. Excluding the insects, fruit, and grass eaten, the coyote requires an estimated 1.3 pounds of food daily and 550 pounds annually. Now, here's some interesting stuff that they feed on other than meat. Produce includes blackberries, blueberries, peaches, pears, apples, prickly pears, persimmons, peanuts, watermelons, cantaloupes, and carrots. And during the winter and the early spring, they'll eat large quantities of grass, like green wheat blades. Some other interesting diet components that they have. In coastal California, coyotes now consume a higher percentage of marine-based food than their ancestors did. And some people think that's due to the moving the grizzly bears out of that region. In Death Valley, coyotes may consume great quantities of caterpillars or beetles in the spring flowering months. How about that? Let's see, livestock and pet predation statistics. So this is where we get into the tough stuff, our livestock and your pets. Let's see. In 2007, coyotes were the most abundant livestock predators in western North America. They're causing the majority of sheep, goat, and cattle losses. For example, according to the National Agricultural Statistics Service, coyotes were responsible for 60.5% of the 224,000 sheep deaths attributed to predation in 2004. So 60% of the sheep deaths to predators were coyotes. The total number of sheep deaths in 2004 comprised 2.22% of the total sheep and lamb population in the United States. 2% of the total sheep and lamb population went to predators. According to the National Agricultural Statistics, that was 7.8 million head of sheep. 7.8 million head of sheep. And that was in 2005. Because coyote populations are typically many times greater and more widely distributed than those of wolves, coyotes cause more overall predation losses. United States government agents routinely shoot, poison, trap, and kill about 90,000 coyotes each year to protect livestock. An Idaho census taken in 2005 showed that individual coyotes were 5% as likely to attack livestock as individual wolves. In Utah, more than 11,000 coyotes were killed for bounties, totaling over $500,000 in the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017. $500,000 in bounties in 2017. That was in Utah. So what do we do about it? Well, we have livestock guardian dogs, and those are commonly used to aggressively repel all kinds of predators. They work well in fenced pasture and range operations. And a survey of sheep producers in 1986 in the USA found that 82% reported the use of dogs represented an economic asset. Now, for us, it's not an economic asset because it costs too much to feed, because they got to be a big dog. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So it's got to be a big dog. Let's see. Protecting yourself and your pets. Coyotes are often attracted to dog food and animals that are small enough to appear as prey. Garbage, pet food, sometimes feeding stations for birds and squirrels. Those can attract coyotes right into your backyard. Let's see. About 3 to 5 pets attacked by coyotes are brought into the Animal Urgent Care Hospital of South Orange County in California each week. The majority of which are dogs. Cats typically do not survive coyote attacks. Smaller breeds of dogs are more likely also to suffer injury and or death. So coyotes are one of my least favorite parts of God's creation, and I've probably given you far too much information on these creatures, but as I said earlier, I needed to talk about this, and thank you so much for listening. Living on the homestead is not always pretty, and survival is always relative to the environment. Many times, survival is a competition between humans and other species. All animals have a right to live, and God made them, and there you go. They have a right to live. And we also have the right to protect our other animals. And sometimes it's a small parasite, which is also deadly at times. And sometimes it's a larger animal, such as coyotes or bears. Everyone is just trying to survive. I miss my Susie Q, and when I look at our decimated flock of sheep, I'm filled with sadness. However, in the end, some of our flock has survived, and we will rebuild. It's what we do. Our flock will rise again. In the fall or next spring, we'll have lambs again. And the life cycle continues. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hop over to Apple Podcasts or whatever podcasting service you use and subscribe. Give me a 5-star rating and a review. And if you like this content, want to help out the show, the absolute best way that you can do that is to share it on all your social media. Share it with your family, with your friends, anyone who might be interested in this type of content. Let them know about the Peaceful Heart FarmCast. and our little homestead. Thank you so much for stopping by the homestead, and until next time, may God fill your life with grace and peace.